Welcome back to part 3 of the Dan Burisch interview. If you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, please search my YouTube channel for them.
Of my association with the LA Micro Society, I saw the former MJ1 walk in the back doorway. I sat at the back right of the room, which was where my spot kind of was. And I noticed him just standing back there, and he kind of just blended in with the crowd that was kind of coming and going. And he looked at me, and I looked at him because I noticed he was laying a little too long of a gaze on me. And I was paranoid as it was scared to death just being around these bright people. These were accomplished scientists. Zane Price was one of them, who was the head of the Electron Micro Lab at UCLA. I mean, these were accomplished people. And I noticed he laid this gaze on me from the back of the room, and he took his lighter, and he opened it. It was a Zippo lighter, and it had a United States Navy seal on it. And he just popped it and lit it, and closed it up, and walked out the back door. I had no idea who this dude was. Scared to ask anybody because I didn't want to look stupid. You know, I was a geeky teen. Later on, I find out that he just wanted to introduce himself to me early on. He wanted to see where I was in my life at the time. Now, of course, the association was already established because of the son Michael and all of that business from 73. This was like 1975, 76, right in that general time frame.
So, okay.
So that was my first meeting with him, but I didn't really meet with him at the time. He showed himself to me.
I understand. And you have since developed a relationship with him such that there is affection there, and he does consider you his son.
He treats me very son-like, yes.
Okay. But would you also say that it's his, he regards you as his son literally, or he must be conscious of the shift or the transfer that took place.
He knows what happened on board. We've had long discussions about this.
Okay.
In fact, during a short, we had an entire night discussion about it one night. You know, I'm trying to do the right things by everybody, and that's the only reason why, to be honest, I mean, my debriefing must come out to the public to the extent that the authentic message, the truthful message of what I've seen, comes out. And that concerns the extraterrestrial issue. But the rest of it, my losing my knees out at Mayboyer Park and falling at the base of the tree where my grandpa was, that's not required. But for people to know that it's not bullshit, being behind it, as messed up as they are, probably more. But yeah, they ought to know that.
I'm going to tell you honestly, when I saw Bill Hamilton's segment interview with you, and you're talking about your relationship with J-Rod and how you communicated with him telepathically, that struck me as incredibly real. And from that point on, I was very interested in what you had to say, because I said, this man really experienced this. This is not bullshit. This is the real thing.
Yeah.
So if you could reiterate kind of how you started working with J-Rod.
He was working with me before I ever knew it. Of course, he was on board, as I understand. I have no memory of him directly, but I mean, as I understand, in 73. He had traveled to 73. And then this is even what I said to Jeff Ransom on the phone. You know, I said, my God, if this doesn't it boggles my mind when you think about paradoxes to start with. That he traveled to 73, I was picked up, and then he subsequently traveled back to the 53 time frame, and there was a crash, which means that he was held at S4 in 1973 at the time that I was playing baseball with my grandpa, and that he was also on board the craft, impinging into our time, lifting me up. Prosaically, I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's a paradox, I guess. I mean, but I actually came into direct contact with him at the end of 1993, start of 94. But yeah, there's something wrong with him. During the entirety of my experience around him, he appeared, the best that I can describe is off-shifted. Almost like, well, I mean, he was physical. I felt him through the glove. There was matter there with me, but almost like he was a ghost with a body. He didn't belong. He did not belong where he was. Yet, when he would communicate, when he would do the entrainment, they thump you. It was almost acoustically. They thump you. And until they finally come into contact with the brain level waves where they can begin communicating. And it comes in waves. It's almost like clicks of a dolphin. It comes in waves. And then you feel yourself pulled in as the entrainment is occurring, that the perception is being pulled into his eyes. Very unwieldy feeling. But then they entrain, bringing you down to relaxation, relaxed almost to a theta state, like an 8 hertz type theta state, where you're very, almost like drowsy, and they tell you, they're not going to hurt you. He did that. He actually said that he would not harm me. When he stepped forward on me when we were doing the old bride's dance, as we nicknamed it, where I was supposed to step forward to him, almost like taking a bride step up the aisle. And then he did the thing back to me, almost jokingly, but it was so unwieldy because he broke the protocol. It's like everything that had been established of trust at that moment, it went to hell. And I got so afraid. There was an animal response in me at that moment, a very, very human animalistic response of get me the hell out of here. And I stepped backward and fell backward onto my back. And that is really what I perceived myself as doing. I said to Jeff, felt like I was a cockroach, lying on my back in there. And he walked up onto me. I heard them yelling, "Fire the repress." They were going to intumesce him. They were going to hurt him so that he wouldn't hurt me. And I was trying to yell no, and I'm not even sure to this day if I really yelled no or if it was just in my mind. The stress was that bad at the moment. And he literally walked up onto me and sat on my chest. He didn't knock me over. I mean, there was, I think Ron or a couple other people said, "Oh, we knocked you over in the clean." He couldn't knock me over. He was too weak to knock me over. He even if he wasn't given his size, he couldn't have knocked me over.
And how tall was he?
Just a little over 3 feet, hunched down, almost 4 feet if he was to be extended out lengthwise, if he would be lying on his back and extended out lengthwise. But the malady, the pathologies under which he was suffering caused him to have weakness, change of gait, change of stance, where most of the time he was extremely hunched over forward, and he really couldn't stand up straight. When he would walk, he would wobble and kind of shuffle.
So he got on your chest. He walked onto your chest, or sat on your chest.
He was actually sitting on my abdomen area, but he was leaning forward with his hands onto my chest.
Was he down? So he was communicating at that moment that he wasn't going to hurt you?
Yes, he said, I won't hurt you, Beanie. He called me Beanie. And that goes to Beanie. He broke English up very strangely.
And you heard this in your head, I'm assuming. I heard it in my head. It wasn't out loud.
No, I heard it in my head, in my own introspective voice, but clearly not coming from me. You know the sound of yourself when you talk to yourself, self-talk. It's the same sound, except it's the wrong linguistics. It's the wrong wording. You could tell it's not you. And initially, when that happens too, there is from my perspective, initially when it was happening, there was a very panicky feeling. But of course, that initially happened when I was part of the B unit team when Stephen was still going in to the clean sphere. He looked at me through the clean sphere and spoke to me and said, I remember, and hello.
Meaning the person who it was, you call, what is his name again? The J-Rod looked at you.
Kaela.
Looked at you when Steve was in the clean sphere with him. He turned around and looked at you.
Yeah, he turned around and looked at me. I was part of the B unit team to start with. In fact, that was going to be my actual occupation in there, was assisting the chief scientist in going into the clean sphere, until he identified me as somebody, I guess, special to him, Kaela, and he wanted me to be the person to go in there. That's why I was promoted ultimately to the working group leader in there, because I didn't have the background, did not have the seniority, and it was not my place. But that's why the promotion happened. It was
Okay, so
a lot of promotions happen in the world, I think, but
but to go back
the
to
Peter
where
principle.
he went onto your chest. He told you he wasn't going to hurt you. Did they actually zap him then, or did they?
I don't believe so, because I would have felt he began to entrain me immediately and strongly, and he relaxed me. The enkephalins, the endorphins were going big time. They entrain on several levels, and they're able to relax you by actually flooding you with natural opiates.
Mm-hmm.
Runner's high.
Right.
So what happened after that? I'm assuming you got
That
to.
you receive as you're going through the natural death process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you naturally kick
Yeah.
up the, you know.
But okay. So, but what happened after that?
After that, I began to sink away from what was going on in the clean sphere, and with the panic that was going on over the radios, because I heard them. We had two separate units, an A unit and a B unit on the radio. They were like separate radio frequencies, and I could push the button and talk independently, but they were stepping over each other, screaming, saying, get a secondary unit ready to get me out of there. They were going to enter in to pull me out, and you can't just step in there that quickly. I mean, they've got to suit somebody up, bring them in, and you knew before you were going in there that the J-Rod, we were trained that they were a threat. And so that we were not supposed to communicate privately with them or anything like that, that we had a certain job to do and we were to get it done. And that was the scientific job of removing the samples, and then the studying of the samples for the back engineering, these are the reversing like chemicals.
The idea was to reverse an illness that he and his people have.
Yeah, we were
the 52.
The 52s, and what we were trying to do initially, jumping off onto the biology a little bit, what we were trying to do is we were trying to actually strip the exterior cytoplasm off from the cells and produce cells which would be independently functioning. Then to understand those cells biochemically, genetically, so that those cells could then be re-added as a graft into the J-Rod to attempt to ameliorate the neuropathy. That's what one of the stated goals was. Easier said than done. But
So, okay.
we were told, though, that if something would go wrong in there, there would be no immediate fix. You weren't a million miles away, but you were several thousand when you were inside there. So you were very alone, even though you had radio communication. It was essentially being isolated on a space shuttle, if you will. And not that easy to get you home. Because they had to do all of the repressurizations of the gantry, bring somebody new in, then get you out, then get you detox, the cleansing, the decontamination, and then get you out of there, then get you out of the suit, then give you medical treatment. So we're talking a couple hours. So if something goes wrong in there and they're potentially able to harm you because of the entrainment, you're dead. And
You've just reviewed part 3 of Dan Burisch's interview, and as we go deeper down the rabbit hole, I suggest you do your own research on his story. I hope you're excited about part 4 as the story gets even more extreme. Thank you for watching The Storyist.